This actor was unconscious and unresponsive at a party, sprinted that mile to the intersection. A woman at the party did something I never would have expected. Things took a turn for the worse. It's time to learn how two actors in a fraternity ruined a scene from Carpe Diem. Today's lesson: college can teach you to be careful about who you trust. Early November 2012 was full of momentum, casting new actors, color grading, even voting for the first time. But all of that would take a back seat to what happened on November 18th, a night I will never forget. So let's jump through time a little bit to get to the good stuff. November 3rd, a sorority called the Metaphonian Society threw a foam party, Wet n Wild 2012, an annual event on campus with a foam pit and a mechanical bull ring. I'd first heard about foam parties back in Season 2, Episode 7, and I attended that year and got a little taste of what that was like. But it's important because I actually got hired to work for Wet n Wild 2013, but I'll get to that later. November 4th, I signed up for the casting website Backstage.com in order to look for actors for Carpe Diem. That was a big step forward for me in expanding my network and raising awareness about my films. November 5th, I tried out an idea called ATAEC Studios Featured Actors, basically actors we'd work with over and over again and try to promote. But to be honest, nothing really came from that. There didn't really seem to be interest in it the way I thought there would be. November 6th, I posted a video on YouTube called Choose Retouched Photos Over Raw Stills, because Selena Welling had started working as a photographer using the camera I'd given her on the Carpe Diem trip. She mostly did dance photography, but when the clients wanted a little extra, she would have me color grade the best photos. It was a good way to stay in touch while dating thousands of miles apart. I got to feel more involved and more aware of the work she was doing, and she got a better product. I hadn't started calling myself a color grader yet, but this was a good start to promoting some of my other skill sets. That was actually the same day I got to vote for the first time. I didn't think about the fact that only 25% of US citizens have their 18th birthdays during election years, and even less than that get to vote in it. So I was lucky the timing worked out that way, and the US re-elected President Barack Obama that evening. November 7th, I shot my next Backpack-to-Briefcase panel on careers in scientific discovery. I looked forward to each panel by then and was fascinated to hear a variety of people speak that night, from research scientists to gastroenterologists.
Passion is fleeting. You will have moments of passion. You can't have passion 24 hours, 7 days a week. But what you can inculcate is discipline, right? The discipline to open a book, the discipline to be critical of your own work.
November 8th, I learned a fun fact. I had a group presentation on Christopher Columbus in my Spanish 355 class. One person in my group's first language was Spanish, another was a transfer student whose first language was Italian, and I learned that although we call him Christopher Columbus in the US today, he was born in Italy as Cristoforo Colombo and was known as Cristobal Colon in Spain. That same day, I talked to Auggie Mares, a senior from VPS who became a location scout for Carpe Diem because he believed in my vision for the film and knew LA a lot better than I did. November 13th, Selena posted a Wix website for ATAEC Studios that she'd made. But I think it shows the difficulty of long-distance communication because the next day we got a new company logo made by graphic designer Jimmy Tang and officially added the words "Live Life for the Stories" as the company motto. It would have made sense to have the logo and the website release on the same day, but because one was being made in London and the other in San Luis Obispo, there was a disconnect somehow that prevented that from happening. Communication was just tough. November 15th, Selena bought a plane ticket to spend Christmas with my family, and you'll find out why that's important towards the end of the season. But that made me think about Carpe Diem. I really wanted to finish shooting this movie, but going to college and being distanced from the other actors made that very difficult. I figured out I could add one scene to the film if I could get a cinematographer and 2 new actors on board. So first, I reached out to my coworker from the Office of Communications, Alex Hackworth, who agreed to be our director of photography for the scene. Then I asked Amyleigh Hoffine from Season 3, Episode 4, who had a theater background and could do a British accent, and an actual British transfer student from my film class, and both of them agreed to act in the scene. Boom! I had my camera operator / cinematographer and my actors. We planned to shoot that Sunday in Penn Park, but I had no idea just how poorly that shoot would go. I think you know what time it is. Story time. Around 1 a.m. on November 18th, around 11 hours before we were supposed to shoot, things took a turn for the worse. I was hanging out with some friends, and I got a call from one of the actors I was supposed to work with the next day. But it wasn't his voice on the other end of the phone. I heard a female voice say, "He's not all right. He needs you here now." She explained that this actor was unconscious and unresponsive at a party, but his last words had been, "Call Eric Hinwood." So she had gone through his phone and found my name. After that, she sent me a text that had a photo of Google Maps that showed the college and her location, which was at an intersection a little over a mile away. I was hanging out with the ALN crew that night, as well as Nick Stanton, and I told Nick to go get his car and that I would text him the address as soon as I got there. Then I sprinted that mile to the intersection, my phone open in one hand to track where I was going, gasping for air, lungs on fire, but thinking the longer I took to arrive, the worse this situation could get. I worried a police officer might stop me for jaywalking or jay-running, but luckily I didn't see anyone on the streets. By the time I reached the spot, I was just able to follow the music to a nearby house party. It may have been a record mile run for me because I managed to text Nick the address before he even got to his car. I burst inside, my throat still burning, and I found the actor slumped in a chair in the corner, totally unresponsive with flecks of vomit on his jeans. I managed to find the woman who called me and asked what happened, and she explained that this was a society's unrush, basically the unofficial rush after party for people that were interested in becoming a part of this fraternity. However, they'd used Dixie cups as shot glasses that night, and a Dixie cup holds about 3 shots worth of alcohol. But no one had told him that, so he hadn't had 7 shots the way he thought. He'd actually had 21 shots. The actor moved his head slightly, and I breathed a sigh of relief that he was at least responding to stimuli again. We tried to get him to drink water, but it felt more like spilling water on him while he slept than getting water into his stomach. We used the remaining water and some napkins to try to clean the puke splatter off of him, and then Nick showed up in his car. There wasn't anywhere to park, so he'd put his hazard lights on and tried to help me get him into the car, but he was just dead weight, and we didn't want to toss him over his shoulder or something that could cause him to throw up on us, or whoever's house we were in. So we went back to his car to make sure he wasn't going to get ticketed and wasn't blocking anyone from trying to leave, and we started looking for other solutions. Then a woman at the party did something I never would have expected. She sat down on the actor's lap, put his hands on her chest, and stood up. His arms stretched out, hands still attached to her boobs, and like magic, he stood up with her, eyes still closed, smiling faintly. I stuffed a nearby water bottle into my back pocket and then held the actor up by his armpits as the woman led him towards the door. He stumbled every other step, but I kept him upright, feet scraping against the ground as he was pulled by the fact that his hands were still grasping this woman's titties, and somehow we shuffled outside and made it to the car. The actor had a sad split from his attachment to breasts, and we got him sitting down with his head out the window in the back seat. At that point, we thanked the woman for figuring out a way to get him outside, and my friend drove us back slowly. We managed to get the actor to sip from the water bottle I'd brought back from the party. We managed to get a few slurred words out of him by the time he reached campus, and my friend asked if he needed to go to the hospital. But the actor said no. We got him back to the dorms with a lot of assistance, and told him to keep the door unlocked and to put a pillow behind him and to sleep on his side in case he threw up in his sleep. That's really important. If you fall asleep on your back and you throw up while asleep, you can drown and die. That happens every year, so you've got to be careful. Sleep on your side, put a pillow behind you so you can't turn back onto your back. That way, if you throw up out the side and you're okay. I told him to drink the rest of the water bottle that night if he could, but he finished it right in front of me just to prove that he would. It was past 2 a.m. by then, and I was so exhausted that I crashed as soon as I got back to my room. But I was just glad the actor was all right. But you'll have to tune in next week to find out what happened on set the next day and what we did to try to salvage the film.
You don't wait till it's absolutely perfect to get into the science. You are just like, here's my data. Here's my data. And somebody goes, hey, that looks like this. You should try this experiment. I got a buddy who's doing this. Let's give him a call. Here's a collaboration.
You're quite dim, meaning not bright. She says, but you know, with some work, I think I could probably get you into medical school because you really don't have to be that smart to do it. And she was entirely correct. She was incredibly inspiring, and she was the kind of person that literally we would sit when I lived up around the corner here, and she didn't live too far from where we could call as we were trying.